Do not disturb borrowed vows. I work nights at a boutique hotel called the Halcyon, which is a gentle word for a building that hums with other people's mistakes. My badge says assistant night manager, but most nights I'm a witness. To arrivals that pretend not to be what they are, to departures that happen before breakfast, to the soft choreography of secrecy. I'm 35, married, and used to believing I'm the boring one who keeps the world from tipping over while everyone else dances on the lip. Her name is Julia, jeweler by day, dreamer by night. When we got married, she made our rings from a strip of gold she carried around in her pocket for a month, warming it with body heat before she hammered it into circles. She said it would keep our fingers from forgetting we were alive. It worked for a while. The text landed at 10:07 p.m. on a Tuesday. A reservation confirmation pinged the front desk system, and out of habit I glanced at the last four digits on file. I knew them. They were Julia's. The booking was for Lydia Rain, an alias so theatrical it might as well have asked for a spotlight. One night only, premier suite, late check-in. The note read, "Do not disturb sign will be used." I told myself it could be a friend borrowing a favor. I told myself a half dozen things that were technically possible and emotionally cowardly. Then, at 11:43, the revolving door exhaled and the woman who slid through, hood up, hair down, mouth painted the quiet color of stubborn, was my wife wearing someone else's posture. I didn't stand to greet her. I stayed behind the monitor and let the glass reflection hide me the way I have watched it hide so many. My colleague Mateo handled the check-in. "Welcome to the Halcyon, Ms. Rain," he said, polite as a closed hand. She showed a credit card she must have gotten new, a driver's license that wasn't hers, and a smile I used to be able to read like weather. When Mateo asked if she needed two keys, she didn't look toward the door, didn't hesitate, just said, "Yes, please," like the words knew where to sit in her mouth. They took the elevator, the mirrored one that makes every couple look like four people. I watched the numbers climb until they stopped at 9. I stared at the monitor until the screensaver glittered with shapes I couldn't name. It would have been funny if it hadn't been devastating. The way the first man I thought about was not the man she was meeting, but the version of me that believed we were fine. I missed him instantly. At midnight, I took my break. I went outside under the awning with its smug little tassels, where nicotine and secrets take turns warming the air. That's where I met Myra. She was standing just beyond the security camera's benevolent cone of vision, a woman wrapped in a camel coat that made the night look sloppy. She held a paper bag like it contained either a gift or a decision. When our eyes met, she didn't do the guilty flinch I'd come to recognize. She walked straight to me as if I were the person you talk to when you want your evening to be honest. "Is the ninth floor bar still open to non-guests?" she asked, voice steady enough to pass inspection, hands trembling just enough to fail. "It is," I said, "but the bartender goes on break at 12:30. If you want something that needs shaking, you should head up now." "I don't," she said. "I want the kind of drink that doesn't know my name." She smiled, small and brave. "Sorry. I've rehearsed 5 different versions of this conversation with a stranger, and you got the one with a joke." "I've heard worse," I said. "I'm Adrian." "Myra," she said, which, if we're being completely transparent, isn't the name on my marriage certificate. She looked up at the facade, at the ninth floor windows where the suites perch like careful lies. "He told me he had a late consult. I told him I had an early morning. This bag is cinnamon rolls from the place that only sells them warm." Her mouth quirked. "They're not for him." "Rough day," I offered. "Rough practice," she corrected. "I'm new at it, this, not knowing." She took a breath. "And I think your wife is in room 903 with my husband." I didn't ask how she knew. There's a tone people use when they've done the arithmetic, and the number is still the number. I could have said a lot of noble things about privacy and policies, but Myra wasn't asking me to break rules. She was telling me she'd broken a life open and needed to stand beside someone while it aired out. "Come upstairs," I heard myself say. "There's an employee's lounge with a window that faces the river. Bad sofa, good view." "I don't want to see them," she said quickly, as if the night might be taking notes. "I don't want a scene. I want a place to keep my hands while I decide who I'm going to be in the morning." So I led her through the service corridor that knows everyone's real face. The lounge was exactly what I'd promised. A couch that remembered every conversation it had been forced to hold, a kettle that took its time boiling, a bowl of mints that tasted like decisions. We sat with our coats on. I poured hot water over tea bags as if that could steam forgiveness into the air. "Tell me one good thing about him," I said, "because sometimes you have to remind the heart it made sense once." "He builds sets for music videos," she said, a little pride sneaking through. "He can look at an empty warehouse and imagine a cathedral of light. He's patient with cables. He's good with fantasy." She met my eyes. "Your wife. She can turn metal into something skin will never forget," I said softly. "When I proposed, I rented a little boat and got seasick before I could speak. She laughed and did it for me, asked me to marry her between waves, wiped my mouth with her sleeve, slipped a ring into my hand like a dare." Myra looked down at her fingers bare. "I took mine off in the car," she said. "It felt like trying to hold a note after the orchestra stopped." The first time our hands touched it was accidental. She passed me a napkin and our knuckles collided, and something calm and dangerous moved through me, the way an elevator settling on a floor makes your bones believe in gravity again. Her skin was warm. Mine must have been, too. We didn't pull away quickly. We let the contact be a fact, not a confession. "I don't want revenge," she said. "Me neither," I said. "What do you want?" she asked. "To stop narrating every room I enter," I said, surprising myself. "To be in it." "That sounds like a luxury," she said, and then softly, "Maybe we can rent it for an hour." We didn't do anything that would need a closed door, not then. We talked like we were under a blanket, the kind of conversation you can feel in your legs. At some point she stood to look out the window, and I stepped behind her without thinking. Not touching, just close enough that the glass held our reflections and they made a kind apology. Two adults, intact and almost beautiful in their clarity. She turned slightly, and the space between us narrowed to an intention. "Is it strange that I'm thinking about how your shirt smells?" she asked. "It's laundry detergent my grandmother swore by," I said. "It's also me being very nervous." "Nervous," she repeated and smiled. "That's almost erotic when a man admits it." I laughed soft. "I'm out of practice," I said, "with everything." "Then let's practice something small," she said, voice a whisper wrapped in permission. She lifted her hand to my collar, straightened it as if the gesture could tidy a life. The backs of her fingers brushed my throat. Nothing explicit happened, and still every signal in me stood up to be counted. I leaned a fraction. Her mouth met mine halfway. "If you're listening for spectacle, there isn't any." It was a kiss with the lights on, soft at first, meant to be refused if either of us needed to. We didn't. It tasted like mint from the tea and sugar from the cinnamon roll she'd unwrapped and never eaten. I kept my hands where she could see them, one on the window sill, one hovering at her waist like a question I was willing to repeat. When she stepped into me, I answered by placing that hand at the small of her back over warm wool. I felt her breathe into the kiss, as if air had finally found its use. We paused, foreheads touched. The room went beautifully unimportant. "Adrian," she murmured, "this is a line, isn't it?" "It is," I said. "We can walk it, or we can sit on it, or we can decide it's not our line to begin with. We choose." She smiled in a way that carried relief. "We choose slowly," she said. We did. We kissed again, longer, with the kind of care you give a small flame you are not sure you're ready to warm your hands over. Nothing in the hotel would have censored us. Nothing in our bodies tried to hurry. When we finally stepped apart, my heart had a new vocabulary for the word enough. At 2 in the morning, Myra left. She took the cinnamon rolls and her decision and her coat back into the city like a sentence with a period instead of a question mark. We exchanged numbers and didn't use them that night. When I went downstairs, the guest ledger showed room 903's "Do Not Disturb" sign still hanging like a flag that refuses weather. By dawn, I had the first draft of my honesty ready. Julia came home smelling like late-night perfume and the clean breath of an elevator. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I told her exactly what I had seen and exactly how long it had taken me to breathe again afterwards. She cried, messy, human, not manipulative. She said love shouldn't have to be a museum exhibit behind glass, all preservation and no touching. I said we could have built a room without locking the other out. She said she had been starving and didn't know how to ask for a table. We stood in the kitchen like we were waiting for the timer on a dish we hadn't put in the oven. We decided to take a week apart and talk only once each day on purpose, without the debris of logistics. During that week, I didn't text Myra. I walked along the river on my breaks. I learned how to sit with my hands by myself. On the 7th day, Julia and I met at the cafe where she'd sketched my wedding band between sips of espresso and a thunderstorm. We ordered the same drinks as then and told the truth in daylight. We realized we were trying to make love do a job neither of us had interviewed it for. We didn't call what we'd built a failure. We called it a finished thing. When we hugged outside, her face in my neck felt like a farewell worth keeping. That night at the Halcyon, the revolver door gave me back my reflection and an hour later offered me Myra's. She arrived with no bag and a little smile, the unannounced kind. I met her halfway. "Did you sleep at all this week?" she asked. "Barely," I said. "You?" "I slept too much," she admitted. "It turns out exhaustion is a good disguise for sadness." We took the elevator we had not taken before, but not to 9, to the roof deck, closed for the season and open to anyone with a keycard and a reason. The city shivered below us. The heaters clicked on like a generous thought. We sat side by side, our shoulders sharing heat through coats, our knees learning each other's names. Words came slowly, but they came. "This doesn't have to be an affair," she said. "Affairs are built on subtraction." "I don't want subtraction," I said. "I want a room with a door we keep open because we want to." She turned, studied me for sincerity, found some, and laughed. That was dangerously close to poetry for a man who files incident reports. "Don't tell anyone," I said. She reached for my hand, not the way drowning people reach, but the way the first swimmer of spring tests the water. I let my fingers be held. The warmth was a statement, not a plea. We didn't rush the rest. For a month we met like two people proofing dough, patient, deliberate, saving the oven for when it would matter. We walked the late blocks, sharing coffee lids, trading facts and small embarrassments and the kind of glances that remember lips. The intimacy we chose was daylight safe and YouTube friendly, if anyone had been filming. Her forehead in the hollow of my collarbone when laughter buckled her. My mouth at her temple as a thank you for showing me the river at dawn. The pause at her doorway where we kissed slow and sure and then stopped, on purpose, because stopping can be a declaration too. In our restraint there was heat that didn't need to shout. We learned the geography of each other's breathing. We found that there is a certain erotic in keeping a palm on a shoulder through a coat and feeling the tendons relax because they believe you. We found that we liked talking about wanting without treating it like a fuse. On a rainy Thursday, Myra brought me to her studio, a cavern of wood and fabric where sets become rooms that music can live in. We stood in a living room they'd built to take apart later, walls on wheels, a fireplace that would never keep anyone warm. We kissed against a bookshelf that wasn't attached to anything, our bodies the only trustworthy weight in the place. When my hand slid under her coat and found the safe geography of her waist, she breathed my name like a promise we were both willing to sign slowly. Later, when we lay on the floor looking at the scaffolding and counting the beats between thunder, I thought of the night I caught my wife checking in under a borrowed name and felt, finally, that my own name fit on my tongue again. We told Alex and Julia the truth. There were no plates thrown, though I think both of them wanted the dignity of shatter. Instead, there was a quiet rearranging. Papers arrived. Signatures happened. At the Halcyon, I took off 2 nights and then returned because the world still needs towels folded and doors held and people watched over while they try to be a version of brave. Now, when couples check in with aliases, I still run the card and hand the keys. But sometimes I add lightly, we have a rooftop that's beautiful in the morning if you want to watch the city forgive itself. Once in a while, they take me up on it. Myra keeps cinnamon rolls in her freezer for emergencies and joy. I bring the tea. We spend some nights together and some apart. We let desire be a bridge, not a demand. There is skin, yes, heat that climbs and laughter that breaks like mercy. But when the camera pans away, if there were a camera, the story doesn't need to apologize. We are 2 adults who learn to touch without stealing. The Halcyon lobby has a mirror that catches us sometimes. Her in her camel coat, me in my midnight suit, both of us clear-eyed in an honest light. When I hold the revolving door for her, she always turns just once, never twice, as if she's decided she doesn't need to spin to feel new. I watch her step into the night with a kiss that lingers on the side of my mouth, the kind that makes a man understand that fidelity isn't only about where you sleep. It's about where you keep your gaze when it would be easy to look away. And when we ride the elevator together, the mirrored walls show us not as 4 people, but as 2 who have chosen to be reflected, not multiplied. We press 9 sometimes, for the bar, not the suite. We press the roof more often, where the heaters tick and the city forgives, and we stand under a sky that doesn't require an alias, our hands warm and our names our own.